Previously on Barefoot Boys, Nagendra Prasad Shorbadikari's Shobha Bajar Club grabbed their place in the history books by becoming the first Indian team to beat the British in a football match in the 1892 Trades Cup.
How to make chingri machar malai curry. What you need: prawns or chingri, turmeric powder, cumin seeds, mustard seeds, red chili powder, cumin powder, ginger paste, coconut milk, salt, sugar, mustard oil, green chilies, garam masala, and ghee. How to cook. Recipe from the Oberoi chef Abhijit Ghosh. Blanch the prawns in turmeric water. Heat mustard oil in a pan and add sugar and whole cumin. Add ginger paste, cumin powder, red chili powder, turmeric powder, and saute. Now add the prawns and slit green chilies and stir fry for a few minutes. Add the coconut milk and cook for a few more minutes, and then add salt. At the end, sprinkle garam masala and ghee on top and serve.
Don't worry, your current favorite podcast hasn't suddenly become a food show. Although when talking about Bengal and Mohun Bagan, their passion for football is rivaled only by their passion for food. Bagan's logo may be the stuff of legends. You know, the Palatial Noko, meaning the sailing boat and boatman. I mean, even today, they are known as the Mariners. Like Manchester United are the Red Devils and Arsenal are the Gunners. But the chingri is the informal symbol of Mohun Bagan. Chingri is a catch-all word for lobster, prawn, shrimp. And chingri machar malai curry is the quintessential Mohun Bagan victory celebration dish. Especially if they have beaten their arch rivals, East Bengal. The rivalry between these two teams and their fan bases is legendary. While Mohun Bagan fans, the Ghotis, are primarily from West Bengal, fans of East Bengal, the Bangals, hail not surprisingly from the east side of the Padma River, in what is now Bangladesh. The Bangals have their own signature dish, Shoshe Ilish, made with East Bengal's own unofficial mascot, the Hilsa fish. Given these twin Bengali appetites, it's no wonder that the Mohun Bagan East Bengal derby match is called Ghoti Bangal Derby or the Chingri Hilsa Derby. But there was a time before the symbols. No chingri, no boatmen, no green and maroon, no signs of greatness on the horizon yet. Let me take you to the Marble Palace where Mohun Bagan was born. From Luminary, this is Barefoot Boys, a podcast about an Indian football team that went toe-to-toe with the British and against all odds emerged as a national symbol. A symbol that told a country fighting for independence, we can win. I'm Konkona Sen Sharma. It was a palatial double-storied building with arched windows and grand porticos lining the sides. Huge palm trees as tall as the building edged the lawns in a symmetrical fashion. There was a pond or a tank on the right, and right in front were the iconic lawns, headlined by two netless goalposts on either side. If those lawns and goalposts were still here, and if they could tell a story, they'd most certainly share what happened on August 14th, 1889. It begins with Umesh Chandra Mojumdar. His friends fondly called him Dukhiram, but most of the rest of Bengal called him Sir. The Sir of Indian football. As a young boy, Sir was actually more inclined towards cricket, but by the time he hit his teens, he started being noticed in the Calcutta football circuit as the hard-to-beat, sturdy central back. Almost like the wall in a football field, with due respect to Rahul Dravid, though I'm sure he wouldn't mind the comparison. In fact, If history remembers Nagendra Prasad as the father of Indian football, it will surely remember Dukhiram Mojumdar as one of its best scouts and coaches. As a teenager, he set up the Dukhiram Mojumdar Students' Union to promote football and cricket among young men. And Dukhiram went to great lengths to identify potential players and invite them to become a part of this union. I guess he felt, like Nagendra Prasad, that the sports field was even ground for anyone, regardless of their backgrounds. He would cycle miles to distant towns in search of these talents and resort to all sorts of strategies to recruit them. Once, legend has it, Dukhiram was trying to convince a young player called Shuru Prasad Chatterjee. He discovered that Shuru Prasad's father wasn't giving his son permission to travel to Calcutta to play football. So Dukhiram asked Shuru Prasad to lie to his father.
Just tell him that you're attending your friend's wedding and then come and play football.
And it worked. There are stories about how Sir also helped young players in need of money. And in one heartwarmingly special instance, he cycled almost 15 kilometers each day to give drinking water to a young footballer suffering from TB. We don't know much about Sir's family or whether he was wealthy, but he must have been at least wealthy enough to set up his own football union. And we also know that the Dukhiram Mojumdar Students' Union practiced their game on the lawns of Mohun Bagan Villa. Now, in early 1889, the Maharaja of Shampukur invited Sir and his union to come play at a big ground in his area. For reasons we haven't been able to pinpoint, Sir went and some of the players from the union went with him. But some players stayed back at Mohun Bagan Villa.
So the native boys, the students, they used to play on that ground, and Dukhiram Mojumdar had established students' union there.
This is Debashish Mojumdar, a journalist.
So the various young lads used to play there. But later on, due to some problem, Dukhiram Mojumdar, as he had separated Aryan from student union and moved to the Shampukur area. So the players who used to play there, they did not have any kind of organized club. They used to play there but couldn't take part in any kind of local competition or anywhere because they did not have any club.
That's when three prominent families of North Calcutta came together and decided to support the lads of the Mohun Bagan Villa. These were the Sens, the Basus, and the owners of the Marble Palace, the Mitras. The man who organized these three families and acquired their patronage was Bhupendranath Basu, a lawyer who had been involved with a fledgling organization called the Indian National Congress, formed just 4 years earlier in 1885. Members of the Indian National Congress had come together to represent and voice Indian interests to the British government.
In 1886, at the Congress Calcutta Convention, the number of Congress delegates had increased from 50 or 60 to 500. And one of those 500 was Bhupen Basu.
This is Shantanu Basu, the great-grandson of Bhupen Basu.
He had just started practicing law then. Bhupen Basu came from a very humble background, but his elder sister was married to Sova Bazar's royal family. She was the one who brought Bhupen to the palace and ensured that he got an education.
Perhaps it was there that he saw these young lads play football? Shantanu Basu seems to think so.
So on Bhupen's request, all the royal families came together and decided to create this team.
And the name given to this new club was Mohun Bagan. The committee heading Mohun Bagan was quite young when compared to other clubs.
When the Mohun Bagan club was founded, Bhupen Basu became the president and was just 28. He himself was in the age of playing football. And the general secretary was Jyotin Basu, his nephew. He was just 16 at the time.
Official club history records 14th August as the date of Mohun Bagan's founding and Bhupen Basu's house at 14 Balaram Ghosh Street as the place. Obviously, I was curious to know more details about the founding moment, so we got in touch with Parth Basu, Bhupen's great-grandnephew and Shantanu's cousin. Here's what he wrote in an email.
The club was founded in a room in our ancestral house in Shambazar. A suitable playing pitch was organized in the nearby Mohun Bagan lane, which now faces a cluster of eateries selling biryanis and a derelict-looking movie theatre, Talkie Show House. The Bhaduri brothers were quite active in the area then.
Don't worry, I'll come to the Bhaduri brothers later.
Our room where the first meetings of the club were held, now houses a primary school, if I'm not mistaken.
The names of those first 11 players are etched in the books of Mohun Bagan history. Girin Bose, Promotho Chatterjee, Sachin Banerjee, Ram Goswami, Sarat Mitter, Hemnath Sen, Nalin Bose, Upin Ghosh, Monindranath Bose, Manmohan Pandey, Provas Mitter, and the captain, Monilal Sen. From the beginning, Bhupen Basu and Priyanath Mitra, one of the founder patrons of Mohun Bagan, wanted the best for the players. Their maroon and green jerseys had been tailored by Messrs. Rankin, a famous European run shop on Old Courthouse Street. And not just uniforms and other cosmetic things. Bhupen Basu's ambition was to apparently elevate Indians up to the level of the British in terms of qualification and reputation. And so he started the Calcutta Club. Not a sports club like Bagan. This was a private members type, and only Indian members were allowed. Because the Bengal club started by the British only allowed Brits. Bhupen Basu modelled the Calcutta Club along British norms and traditions with a premium on etiquette, attire and general behaviour. And this preoccupation for prim and proper trickled down to how Bagan operated in those early days. The club officials had very high standards, not just to do with quality of play, but also punctuality, discipline and education. To join the club, each applicant had to produce his guardian's permission. There was a probationary period of 6 months. Then there was the club's program, a rigorous process in itself meant to build character and mental fortitude. The Bagan officials prescribed a high moral code for the members. Some of the members would later recall how Jyotindranath Basu, the club secretary, would suddenly line up younger members of the club to see how well they were doing in college. One unfortunate youngster was expelled from the club for smoking. How different it would be today. I'm not sure if these methods would be considered acceptable today. And how anti-British were they being by essentially replicating British cultural practices and values? Being presentable is one thing, but these days it would be considered a matter of pride, and rightly so, in my opinion, to speak at post-match press events in your native tongue, accents and all. In 1890, the Mitras sold the Mohun Bagan villa to Bhupen Basu. Attorney Nimai Basu and another individual whose name I couldn't find for 1.5 lakh rupees. Nimai Basu was an influential citizen of Calcutta at the time, known for his refusal of Europeans as clients. That same year, 1890, the Indian National Congress's annual session was held at Tivoli Park, Calcutta. Due to Bhupen Basu's connections, delegates from other provinces were housed at Mohun Bagan Villa. The session was a grand affair. Tivoli Park had a capacity of 5,200, but there was a point on the first day where there were nearly 8,000 people attending. Here's an excerpt from the report of the British Committee of the INC.
It met in a vast hall or pavilion, 250 feet in length by 150 in breadth, erected for the purpose in the Tivoli Gardens, a place of public resort at other times, most kindly lent by the proprietors. A sort of minor Vauxhall, where switchback railways, balloons, swimming bath, and other attractions have, from time to time, in the past, rendered it well known to the public.
At this time, the Congress was still decades away from raising the demand for independence, Purna Swaraj, or even self-rule. In fact, even at the Calcutta session, every attempt was made by the delegates to emphasize the organization's loyalty to the British. Here, for instance, is what Manmohan Ghosh said about the national movement in his welcome address to the delegates.
It is not a movement intended in the slightest degree to embarrass or hamper the government of the country, but to assist that government by every means in the great and difficult task in which it is engaged.
But that's not to say that the session was just all show. The resolutions that were passed there were very clear. The path the British were taking would not go unchallenged. It was meant to strongly suggest that if the British are here to govern, then they must do so without discrimination. The Congress delegates who were housed at the villa during the session would have been among its last guests. A year after Bhupen Basu and the others bought it, Mohun Bagan Villa was demolished. In its place, a number of smaller houses came up. And if you go there today, you will find 2 roads passing through the premises of where that palatial building once stood. one that was so intimately connected to Calcutta's political and sporting history. You will also find statues of the immortal 11. Devika Bhaduri, great-granddaughter-in-law of Shibdas Bhaduri, the captain of that iconic team, told us that an event takes place there on 29th July every year.
Now in Kirti Mitra Lane, you'll come across statues of the Immortal 11 that were created under the initiative of our councillor Atin Ghosh. And every 29 July there, a small event takes place. And in that event, every year, a journalist, as far as I can remember, his name was Joyanta Chakraborty, he used to do live commentary of the final match. It was extraordinary. It felt like we had been transported to 1911 and we were experiencing the match firsthand.
After the villa was demolished, Bagan shifted its home ground to the larger ground owned by the Laha family of Shampukur. You will remember this is the place where we left Dukhiram sir when he left Mohun Bagan villa. By this time, Mohun Bagan had started playing friendly matches with local teams like Shobha Bajar, National Association, Aryan, Kumartuli, Calcutta Medical College and Shibpur Engineering College. But success for the fledgling club was hard to come by in those early years. One of the first major tournaments they played was the 1893 Kuch Bihar Trophy, only for Indian teams. Bagan's performance was unremarkable, and understandably, team morale plummeted. The fact that they were not good enough even in an Indian team's only tournament must have been a bitter pill. That same year, Bagan played their first ever match against a British team, the C Company of the Sussex Regiment. They lost that match too. And they discovered just how wide was the chasm that existed between their level of play and that of a top team. The players of the Sussex Regiment were vastly experienced. They routinely played with other clubs in England. That was the key Bagan club officials figured. Keep building experience, keep playing. They had a couple of experienced players in Captain Monilal Sen and Moni Das, but all the others were young students who were still picking up the fundamentals of the game. In 1895, the Calcutta Municipal Corporation inaugurated a public area known as Sham Square. Maybe thanks to the good offices of newly appointed Municipal Commissioner Bhupen Basu, Bagan were allotted space there along with the Aryan and Bagbajar clubs. But this change of stamping ground didn't have much of an impact on the club's performance. Bagan just wasn't delivering wins. Enter Subedar Major Sailendranath Bose. Next time on Barefoot Boys, Bengal is plunged into a period of terrible political darkness, but the sun begins to slowly come up on Mohun Bagan. Barefoot Boys is a Luminary original podcast produced by Rainshine Entertainment, and you've been listening to me, Konkona Sen Sharma. Gaurav Vaz is our executive producer, Vivek Madan is our director and script supervisor. Our writing team was led by Vivek Madan, Vikram Shah and Archana Nathan, who wrote these episodes along with Shankhudeep Sengupta, Nevin Thomas, Arka Bhattacharya and Amar Shyas. We recorded the podcast at Island City Studios with Ashyar Balsara. Sachi Rajadhaksh is our sound designer and audio producer, and Ayan Dee mixed and mastered these episodes. Thanks to all our guests and experts for their time and valuable inputs. And a special thank you to Sidin Vadukut for his help getting this podcast off the ground. And most of all, thanks to the Omo Rakadosh, 11 men who did the impossible, who taught a country to dream and for a brief moment showed us what freedom felt like long before we were free.